What's a secret you won't share with anyone in person, but you are willing to share anonymously? Story 1. I broke up with my ex-boyfriend because he was cheating. He and his best friend decided to break into my apartment and wait for me to get home from going out. What started as a chance for him to talk some sense into me and get me back turned into them keeping me hostage, assaulting and beating me for 18 hours. I never told anyone what happened because they threatened me. My family never understood why I broke up with him, and they still invited him to family functions. I would go to holidays and he would show up. I asked them not to, but they still did. I stopped going around them and they have no idea why. I miss my nephews and nieces, but I can't go around them and risk seeing him. At this point, it's been so long since it happened that I don't think they would believe me. I just want the pain of what happened and having to lose my family over it to end, but it never does. Story 2. On the day of our 10-year wedding anniversary, I found that my wife had been talking to a guy online, trading pictures, and discussing possibly leaving me for about a month and a half. I sort of knew the guy through the guild my wife and I were in, World of Warcraft. The night before, when I got home from work, she was telling me some jokes he had told her, and I found it strange that she found them as funny as she did. It didn't feel like something she would normally laugh at. While we were on the couch watching TV, I logged into her Discord account. The first thing I saw was, "I'd send you pictures, but I'm being supervised." I immediately excused myself and went to bed. I didn't know what to think, so I just shut down. The next morning, I Googled a script to download their chat history from Discord, and I read it all. My heart broke when I read, "I'm so angry at husband when he's not with me, but I'm fine when he's here." It shattered further when I saw her say, "I love you," in the chat logs. It shattered again when I read, "I thought being intimate with husband a bunch would cure my feelings, but it hasn't. I haven't cried I can't even remember the last time I cried, but I cried 3 times while reading the logs." It was a heartbreaking journey of sadness, despair, and anger as I saw the progression of their relationship. They argued, resolved arguments, and argued again. At one point, she told him she didn't know why she was doing this, that she really loved me, but that he was like her kryptonite, and she couldn't help it. It seemed like any relationship between them had run its course. They were just mechanically continuing, trading pictures, presumably through Snapchat, though I can't prove it, whenever one of them felt like it. I confronted her. I said, "Happy anniversary. Do we have another year?" Then I told her I found and read the logs. She explained how it happened, said we did have another year, and that she didn't know how to end it once she realized what she was doing. She claimed she didn't really cheat, eye roll, said she would immediately block him on everything. I was pretty catatonic for almost a week. It's been about 6 weeks now. We seem to be doing fine, I think. The trust is still broken, though, and I still find myself wanting to check her accounts if she leaves her phone out or computer on. I'm mostly okay now, but sometimes I'll hear or see something that reminds me of everything, like when I saw this post title, and I'll have a wave of depression, I guess. It's hard to explain. I haven't talked to anyone about this because I still love her, and I don't want my family and friends to hate her. Now, I feel like I should explain why she was angry with me since I mentioned it earlier. She was angry because she felt like I wasn't doing enough around the house. She talked to me about that while she was already talking to him. I felt like I was doing plenty, but she wasn't recognizing it. Still, I took her complaint seriously. I started writing down everything I did around the house in a daily journal, picking up trash, cleaning up messes, taking care of the little one, picking up her old coffee mugs, and used Splenda packets. I'm still doing this because I realized it was hard to remember everything I'd done, and it might have seemed like I wasn't doing much. Tracking it made it easier to see it all added up. It's also satisfying to see the pages fill up from margin to margin with everything I've done. Story 3. My mom and her boyfriend abused me and my 2 younger siblings, brother and sister, when we were very young. I was the oldest, just 5 years old at the time of my brother's first birthday, when I noticed something wasn't right. But at 5, I didn't really understand what was happening and thought abuse was normal. One day, a few days after my brother's birthday, my mom told me he was sick and needed to go to the hospital. I didn't think much about it and said my goodbyes as my mom dropped me off at my aunt's house on the way to the hospital. At my aunt's house, she gave me a bath and I played with my cousins until it got dark. Then something unexpected happened. There was a knock at the door. I thought it was my mom with my baby brother, and I was relieved, thinking everything was okay. When my aunt opened the door, she started crying. 2 tall men, police officers, were there. They picked me up and told me I had to go away. I remember screaming for my aunt, and I didn't get to say goodbye. At the time, I didn't understand what was happening. I even thought they might be taking me to my mom. They brought me to a place I can't remember much about, where they fed me and took care of me for the night. The next morning, they took me to a foster home. It was a large family I didn't know, and it was terrifying for me. I stayed there for a few weeks before being moved again. At the next place, I waited in a room until I saw someone I recognized, my grandparents and my sister, but my brother wasn't there. I began to worry he was still sick. I was excited to see my grandparents and to learn they were taking me home. That's when they explained why I had been taken away. They told me about the abuse and neglect we suffered and how it had been too much for my baby brother. He wasn't sick, he was dying. My mom and her boyfriend were charged for abusing us and causing his death. As a child, I didn't fully grasp what that meant. But as I grew older, I started blaming myself for not being able to stop it, even though I was so young and couldn't have done anything. Every year on his birthday, I visit his grave and leave a flower. My aunt told me he loved yellow, so I always bring yellow flowers and sometimes a small toy I think he would have liked. I often wonder if he's up there, watching over me, and whether he likes that I still visit him every year. Story 4. My wife cheated on me with a professional soccer player. She claims they didn't have a physical relationship, but I'm not sure if I can believe her. Before I found out, I discovered it by looking at her phone. She didn't tell me. We were arguing often and not getting along. One night, I had enough and approached her to discuss what was happening to us. That's when she told me she didn't know if she loved me anymore. 2 weeks later, I found inappropriate pictures she had sent him, texts between them discussing meeting up, and the most hurtful things a wife could say about her husband. At that point, I understood why she seemed detached from me. Her emotional needs were being met by someone else. We have 3 amazing kids, a son and 2 daughters aged 10, 9, and 7. They are such good kids. I'm dumbfounded that my wife would do this. We've been together for 20 years and married for 14. I think back to when she loved me and how happy we were. Life has been challenging, but not more so than for most couples. I'm still so in love with her. She's an amazing mom, incredibly beautiful to me, and has a bubbly personality that everyone loves. I was always proud to call her my wife. At least I used to be. Fast forward to now, about 7, 8 months later, and she has yet to show any remorse or affection. I feel so lonely, sad, afraid, and ashamed. I'm embarrassed to admit that I've thought about ending my life, thinking it would make her happy to be rid of me. But I could never do that to my kids. They would be so hurt and confused. Instead, I pray for a fatal disease or accident. We've been going to counseling, and she ended the relationship with the other man the day after I found out. She's told me she loves me, but admitted she's not in love with me romantically. Her actions don't show much either. I haven't told anyone except our counselor. Close friends, my brothers, and my parents keep asking what's wrong, but I don't want them to think poorly of her. Story 5. When I was a little girl, around 3 or 4 years old, I had a friend who would come over to play. She always wanted to play in the doghouse in our backyard, where she would try to get me to play a game she said her dad played with her. The game involved touching each other in ways no child should experience. My mom thought it was strange that the girl always wanted to play in the doghouse, so she got rid of it pretty quickly. At the time, I didn't understand what the game meant. It took me 2 decades to realize what was actually happening. It hit me one day like a lightning bolt, and I suddenly remembered the incident and understood what it meant. That little girl was being abused by her dad. I can't even remember her name. I've never asked my mom if she remembers her, and I've never tried to find her. I've never told anyone about this, and I feel ashamed of my cowardice. Story 6. I have stage 4 stomach cancer. Earlier this year, over 2 months, I unexpectedly lost about 30 pounds, dropping from 220 pounds to 190. Friends and family urged me to see a doctor, so I did. At first, I was diagnosed with gastritis. When treatment failed, they realized I had been misdiagnosed. Over the next few months, I was told I had Crohn's disease, diverticulitis, and ulcerative colitis, none of which were correct. Last Thursday, I was finally diagnosed with stage 4 gastric cancer. One of the doctors decided to perform an endoscopy, a procedure that uses a camera to look inside. They found a tumorous growth in my stomach, which turned out to be malignant. It has spread to nearby lymph nodes, and I have an appointment tomorrow to check if it has affected other organs. I don't know how to tell my family about this. My symptoms include persistent nausea, blood in my vomit and stool, loss of appetite, feeling full after just a few bites, continued weight loss. I'm now 175 lbs, my weight in middle school, constant fatigue, and abdominal discomfort. Despite all this, I've hidden my condition from my wife, kids, parents, siblings, coworkers, and friends. I never told them much after the Crohn's and diverticulitis misdiagnoses because I didn't want them to treat me differently. I want to remain useful for as long as I can without burdening anyone. After battling bipolar disorder for much of my life, I've struggled with self-loathing and suicidal thoughts. 12 years ago, I attempted suicide, but was revived by emergency services. I tried again 3 years later and failed. Less than a year after that, I was hospitalized for attempting to act on another plan. For most of my life, I've hated myself and thought about ending it all. I've always been an atheist, so I've never feared an afterlife of torment. But this diagnosis makes me wish I believed in something greater. Now I know I won't survive this. I don't have to inflict the additional grief of suicide on my family. I'll let the cancer take me instead. Story 7. I own a 5-foot-tall doll while living with 2 grandmas and my mom. It was a challenge, ordering the doll and sneaking the 80-pound box into the house without anyone noticing. I sat outside, waiting for the UPS delivery to ensure no doorbell was rung. Once it arrived, I had to carry the box through the front door, down the hallway, and into my room, all without being seen. Somehow I managed it. After owning it for about a week, I realized it was tricky to keep it clean with people around. Strategizing cleaning times in the bathroom became a task. One time, I had it in the bathtub for cleaning and decided to take a shower to avoid raising suspicions. When I opened the bathroom door afterward, I saw my grandma waiting to use it. I prayed she didn't open the shower curtain while she was in there, and luckily, she didn't. A few months later, some family members needed to move in, and I had to share my room temporarily with my brother and his girlfriend. I hid the doll in a large enough box inside my closet. To this day, no one knows I own this life-size doll, and I plan to keep it that way. Story 8. My fiancé is the only person I truly enjoy being around. I don't say that out loud because it would put too much pressure on her and reveal my antisocial tendencies. I wasn't always like this. It started about 6 or 7 years ago, after I went through a deep depression and struggled with drug addiction. I've been happy and drug-free for several years, but I haven't been the same person I was before. When I make myself hang out with friends, I often sit there thinking about how long I need to stay before I can leave without seeming rude. Conversations are difficult because my mind is preoccupied with thoughts like, when will they leave me alone? Or, when can I go home? Despite this, I've gotten good at hiding my feelings, and several people consider me their friend, but I secretly don't get any enjoyment out of those relationships. My fiancée is different, though I don't know why. She makes me feel safe, and I genuinely love being around her. That makes me afraid of losing her because I'm almost certain I wouldn't find anyone else I could love the way I love her. In the past, during a few months when we were separated, I went on dates with other women. Some of them were very attractive and kind, but I hated the entire process. I couldn't connect with anyone and didn't go on second dates. I wish I could change this about myself, but I don't know how. Story 9. Late to the party, but this is a story I've never told anyone. It was the 1980s, and I was in 5th grade, a chubby white nerd. There was a 6th grader, an Arab kid, who bullied me with his friends. Most of it was shoving, name-calling, and heckling, but sometimes it got really nasty. Once when I was feeling sick and in the school bathroom, the leader of the group saw me go in. As I puked into the toilet, he came in behind me and shoved my face into my own vomit. Another time, they smashed a paper bag of dog poop on my head. Every day after school, they would heckle and follow me home since they lived just a block past me. At the end of the walk, the leader would always say, "You better not tell anyone, right?" If I didn't respond, he'd grab me, threaten me, and say, "If you tell anyone, I'll kill you." He said it with such conviction that I believed him. Around this time, my uncle, a trucker, visited us. He had a tiny Pomeranian named Brutus, despite the tough name. My uncle shared a story about 2 guys who tried to rob him at a truck stop. He used a tire thumper, a heavy wooden stick for checking truck tires, to defend himself, knocking one of the men out. Hearing his story, I wished I had a tire thumper to protect myself from my bully. I asked my uncle if he had another tire thumper, pretending it was for protection against a mean dog in our neighborhood. He gave me one, and I started carrying it in the umbrella sleeve of my backpack. The bullying continued, but I was too afraid to use the thumper. It was always 3 or 4 against 1. Then one day I stayed after school for a project, thinking I was safe since they'd left an hour earlier. On my way home, I saw the leader following me. He was alone this time. As we walked through a wooded shortcut called the Trails, he started taunting me. Then he pulled out a pocket knife and said, "Time to gut a little piggy." He charged at me, and in a panic, I swung the tire thumper blindly. I heard a crack and a scream. He fell to the ground, crying. I lifted the thumper again, ready to hit him, but he begged me to stop. My rage subsided for a moment. He asked me to get help, but when he insulted me again, my anger flared up, and I hit his thigh as hard as I could. I heard another crack, and he screamed again. Suddenly, someone called out from the street, "You okay in there?" I panicked, covered his mouth, and whispered, "If you tell anyone, I'll kill you with your own knife." He believed me. I took the knife, ran home, and hid it in my grandfather's attic. He didn't come to school for a week. When he returned, he had an arm cast and a leg cast. He told everyone he'd fallen off a bike ramp. After that, he and his friends left me alone. I've Googled him over the years. He was arrested in the late 90s for domestic violence and animal abuse, but now he seems to have turned his life around. He owns a business, is married, and has kids. His wife looks like someone who wouldn't tolerate his past behavior. This is the only time I've ever intentionally hurt someone, and I've never told anyone, not my wife, not my best friends, no one. I feel horrible about it, but justify it because of the bullying. It's something I'll carry with me forever. Story 10. I am a leader at my church, though it's purely voluntary. I used to teach Sunday school and still fill in occasionally when someone is sick. I even went to a Christian college for a while and minored in New Testament Greek. I married a Christian woman, and my kids are growing up in our church. But the truth is, I no longer believe in God. I wish I could, but it just doesn't make sense to me anymore. I maintain the illusion of faith because I know it would break the hearts of people I care deeply about if they knew the truth. It feels like I've lost a close friend I had for 34 years. Someone who was always there for me and knew me better than anyone else. But I can't mourn this loss openly because my family and friends still believe in that friend. If I told them, it would feel like they've lost me. Story 11. I accidentally got high at work. Here's what happened. I turned 21 last Sunday, so of course I went out and drank way too much. The next morning, I went to work with the worst migraine I've ever had. After a few hours, I couldn't take it anymore and asked a coworker if they had any ibuprofen. She handed me 3 pills and said they'd help with migraines. I didn't think much of it and took all 3. At first I felt nothing, but soon I started to feel odd. I realized I shouldn't have taken all 3, but at least my headache was gone. 20 minutes later, I felt like I was on cloud 9. I couldn't focus on anything, not even reading. Unfortunately, it went downhill from there. About 2 hours later, I was randomly drug tested at work. Nothing came up, but my boss suspended me for a week and a half due to suspicion of drug use. It's been a rough few days. Story 12. This is embarrassing, but my wife already knows, so here goes. A few years ago, we moved in with her parents to save money. Adjusting to living with parents again was strange and uncomfortable. One morning, I woke up with an urgent need to use the bathroom. I could hear my father-in-law getting ready for work, and I panicked. I didn't want to have to take a massive dump in their bathroom so early on in our stay. In desperation, I grabbed a small trash bin in the corner of our room, lined with a bag, and did my business in it. After cleaning up, I tied the bag and started getting ready for work, with the bag of poop sitting awkwardly by my feet. The problem? I needed to dispose of it without anyone noticing. I decided to take it with me and find a public trash bin on the way. I walked 15 minutes to work with a bag of poop in my hoodie pocket until I could finally toss it. Story 13. I was around 14, a nerdy, introverted kid in a small town. I'd never kissed a girl, never had a girlfriend, and felt isolated most of the time. One night, at my older brother's wedding reception, I had a few drinks and was feeling good. Someone told me one of the bridesmaids' little sisters, who was my age, thought I was cute. I found her and we hit it off. She was cute, funny, and nice. For the first time, I felt like this could be a turning point in my life. We wandered off, holding hands, and found an empty room. We talked some more, and I finally worked up the nerve to kiss her. It was my first kiss, and she puked in my mouth before running out of the room. Story 14. I work in the mental health field, and I'm really good at what I do. I'm good at connecting with clients, and I've had many of them approach me at the end of their stay at the facility I work at to tell me I've made a huge difference in their lives. I take a lot of pride in that. When I'm not at work, I'm completely and totally alone. I don't have friends, my contact with family is intermittent, and I don't make a particularly good living financially. Despite being in shape and conventionally attractive, I haven't had ass in a couple of years and have deep trust issues with women because of past experiences. I'm not sure I even have the ability to express romantic intimacy anymore, emotionally, not physically. I think I'm probably in a worse place in terms of depression and isolation than most of the people I care for. But over the years, I've gotten really good at hiding it. Story 15. Everyone thinks I have my life together, but in reality, it's a horrible mess. I've gotten dangerously good at being manipulative and lying to get what I want after a rough childhood. I always keep my emotions in check to portray myself in whatever way best fits the situation and prey on the emotions of others. I can't tell the truth anymore without deconstructing a 10-plus-year-old cumulative lie. I even find myself lying about trivial things just to see how far I can go with it and still get away. Up until a few months ago, this was all subconscious, but now that I notice it, I'm concerned, not worried, if that makes sense, about how this will affect any future relationships or kids. I'm 90% sure I have sociopathic, if not psychopathic tendencies. The negative stigma around that alone keeps me up at night in case someone finds out. The worst part is, this doesn't worry me, even though I know it should. In fact, I love the thrill of keeping this con going, even though I know it will end up being extremely destructive. Thank God for anonymity. I'd never be able to say any of this in person. Story 16. I'm semi-embarrassed by this, but I don't really care if it's public anymore. When I was a kid, I had a Peter Pan t-shirt, one of my favorite childhood movies, that my mom had gotten for me from Disneyland. It was a bit oversized, since I was only 4 or 5 years old. One day, while I was taking a dump, I accidentally got poop on the back of the shirt near the bottom. My mom saw it and decided to throw the shirt away, which left me heartbroken because it was my favorite shirt, though I don't blame her, From that day forward, I developed a habit of removing every article of clothing before going to the bathroom out of fear that I'd get poop on it again, even in public. This habit was discovered at a local mall when I was 10. My dad found all of my clothes on the floor of the stall and was understandably confused. To this day, I still use this habit at home, going completely naked when I use the bathroom. In public, I've developed a system. I pull my shirt almost completely off, leaving the neck hole behind my neck and my arms still in the sleeves. One leg is out of my pants, with the pant leg draped over my other leg to avoid touching the restroom floor. I'm now 23 and will probably never change my bathroom habits. Story 17. I was actually assaulted by a woman, but I refused to admit it to anyone. When I was about 21, I reconnected with a friend from high school. After we caught up, she made some advances toward me, which I politely declined. Later that night, she invited me over to drink with her and another friend. Thinking nothing of it, I went. After drinking quite a lot, she kept making advances, and I kept declining. Then she stripped down completely, grabbed me, and forced herself on me. I didn't know how to react. It felt strange, and I was afraid of upsetting her if I pushed her off or said no, so I just tried to get it over with as quickly as possible. I walked home at 2 a.m. since she lived less than half a mile away. The next day, I felt so strange. I tried to justify it as just another night of drunk S, but I haven't been able to shake how it made me feel. What really rubbed salt in the wound was about a week later when she posted on Facebook about how real men don't sleep with drunk women. After that, I blocked her. Story 18. My fiance works afternoon shifts while I work days. I usually get home from work, feed and walk the dog, and then head to my den for the evening. Since we've been on separate schedules for a while, I have to admit a couple of things. First, I haven't been keeping my computer Xbox room as tidy as I should. It's not a complete disaster, but it's definitely at single college dude level. Dirty clothes and empty beer cans scattered around. Second, we haven't been very intimate lately because we hardly see each other. With that context, I fed the dog, went down to my basement computer room, turned on a mellow Spotify playlist to set the mood, opened an incognito browser, and went straight to Pornhub, like any self-respecting lonely guy might do. I don't remember what videos I watched. It was probably the usual, MILF, interracial, maybe a Nuru massage. But that doesn't matter because what happened next wiped my memory clean. After about an hour of edging myself, I finally decided to finish. I loaded up the perfect video and looked around for cleanup options. That's when I spotted a black sock next to me. Some might pretend it's weird, but a sock works perfectly. It fits well, doesn't chafe, and makes cleanup easy. So I wrapped the sock around myself and got to finishing. As I stroked, I noticed an odd sensation, like the material was shifting slightly. I ignored it and kept going. When I finally finished, it wasn't as satisfying as I'd hoped, but I chalked it up to the weird feeling. Then as I slid the sock off, I saw it, a freaking earwig crawling down my shaft toward my pubes. Panicking, I threw the sock to the floor. Another earwig crawled out from the tip of my dick. I screamed and started slapping at myself, basically punching my own crotch in terror. After confirming there were no more bugs on me, I went back to the sock and turned it inside out. To my horror, 4 more earwigs were crawling around inside. To this day, I can't look at socks the same way again. Story 19. I've never told anyone, not a soul. So here it is, Reddit. A couple of months ago, I was at a bar and drank too much. I'm a lightweight, and I overdid it. 2 men started talking to me, and in my drunken state, I went along with it. I ended up stumbling into a cab with them, and we went back to their place. When we got there, they led me to a bed, but I was so drunk I fell off it. They helped me back onto the bed and started taking off my clothes. I was too numb from the alcohol to resist, and I remember thinking, let's just get it over with. I obediently stayed on all fours and gave one of the men oral. The other man started having S with me from behind, but then he suddenly tried to enter me anally. I shouted, "Ouch, stop it!" He apologized and left the room. The first man then turned me around and continued having S with me from behind, but not anally. I stayed silent and compliant. When he was done, he politely asked if I wanted a glass of water. I said yes, and he brought it to me. Then I fell asleep. A couple of hours later, I woke up, and by some miracle, all my belongings were still in the room. Wallet, phone, everything. I grabbed my stuff, snuck out, and went home. When I tried to use the bathroom, it hurt, and I noticed I was bleeding. I cried a little and then went to bed, my own safe bed. Looking back, I honestly think that if I had firmly said no, they wouldn't have pushed further. They didn't seem violent, just opportunistic. Surprisingly, I feel fine now. I'm even looking forward to a date next week with a sweet man I've been talking to. I feel calm and content. No nightmares, no lingering trauma. I do plan to speak with a professional about this when I can afford to. But for now, I'm okay. Story 20. This is going to be a very long post. No one may read it, but I'm going to post it anyway. My dad beat me from when I was small until he was caught cheating on my mom while she was at the hospital visiting my dying grandfather. I thought things would get better after he was gone, but my mom, who is disabled and can't work, was left with no income, and my dad took all the savings. The stress of raising a child with no money, no help, and taking care of her 90-year-old mother with dementia took a massive toll on her. One day, she snapped. She blamed me for everything. She would cry all night, be angry all day, and beat me worse than my dad ever did. I was too afraid to defend myself. Some days I would just hold her while she pounded my back with her fists. Other days she would run out into the snowy night wearing only her nightgown, barefoot, crying until she came back hours later, frozen and silent. I remember one day finding her in the kitchen, holding a glass of wine in one hand and a knife in the other. When she saw me, she tried to stab herself. I was maybe 12 or 13 years old, wrestling a knife out of my own mother's hands as she tried to kill herself in front of me. Another time, she called the police on me for assaulting her. My memory is hazy. I've suppressed so much, but I think what happened was she hit me and I pushed her back. She told the police I had attacked her. I ran away with no money, wearing only the clothes I had on. I was 15. I called a friend I barely knew from school, crying. He didn't need to help me. We hardly knew each other. But he met me halfway between my house and his at 11 p.m. He calmed me down, and his family made sure I knew I was welcome there any time. They saved my life. The police eventually found me and took me back home. I didn't defend myself when my mom accused me because I didn't want her life to get worse if I told them the truth. They let me go, and that was the end of it. Now I live with constant anxiety, mood swings, depression, and memory problems from suppressing so much. I've even lost most of my internal monologue. My brain is just quiet and foggy. Things between my mom and me are better now. I never ran away again, and a part of me always knew her behavior wasn't truly her. I held on to the friends who cared about me, and they kept me going. Story 21, how my husband and I met. Everyone knows the cover story. We grew up in the same neighborhood as just friends, went to college together at a local state school, got stuck inside during a winter storm, and realized our feelings. Now we're happily married. The reality? Only a few people know the truth. Here's the long version. We did grow up together, but we were genuinely just close friends. In high school, we stuck together because our other neighborhood friends got into weed and partying more than we wanted to deal with. We started going to the gym together and became lifting partners. When it was time for college, my local state school didn't have my program, so I applied to one in the next state over. He surprised me by applying there too. He got better scholarships and decided to attend. We continued lifting together in college, staying close friends. One day during junior year after a lift, we went to the co-ed sauna at the gym. A group of 6 or 7 girls from a sports team walked in wearing sports bras and spandex. My now husband's eyes lit up and I teased him about it. They started talking to him and blatantly turned the conversation S. They asked him questions, and I, being the wingman, joked that he'd taught me everything I knew. A lie. Then one of the girls asked if she could practice deep throating on him. To my shock, she meant right there. She tried but couldn't do it. Another girl tried, then another. None of them managed. I got caught up in the moment, and without thinking, I grabbed him and did it myself, easily. Realizing what I'd done, I was mortified and left immediately. A few days later, he called me. He said, "It happened. Let's get over it. I need my lifting partner back." We moved on and stayed friends. Months later, during a snowstorm, I ended up crashing at his apartment. The storm was worse than expected, and I couldn't leave. I woke up cold in the middle of the night, crawled into his bed, and said, "This is something we should have done a long time ago." That was the moment we realized our true feelings for each other. We toasted the winter storm at our wedding, but only a few people know about the sauna incident. To everyone else, it's just a sweet story about getting snowed in. And yes, we still live together. Story 22. I, F25, spent almost 6 years with my significant other, M28. We lived together, and I believe he was bipolar. I worked 2 jobs to cover all the bills, food, and other expenses, so he wouldn't have to worry. He had a part-time job that he barely attended. We both fell into a miserable rut, smoking weed every day. I had to handle all the cooking, cleaning, and providing. It was incredibly stressful. I lost all my friends because I was either working or too burned out to do anything. 2 years into the relationship, I became deeply unhappy and wanted to end it. But when I brought it up, he told me he would kill himself. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't bear the thought of causing that pain. About a year later, I started an emotional affair with a coworker. We'll call him Ben. After a little over a year, it turned S and occasional meetups for S. This continued on and off for almost 3 years. 6 months into the affair, I met a Dom guy online and began a virtual Dom sub-relationship with him. Then, about a year after the affair with Ben started, I met another coworker's boyfriend, M25, we'll call him Jason. Jason and I instantly hit it off and ended up having S in his car. At this point, I was still with my SO while seeing Ben, Jason, and the Dom online. I realized how awful I was being. Just because I didn't love my SO anymore didn't mean I should treat him that way. After about a year, I broke things off with all the men and focused on my relationship. Jason started talking to me again a year later, and I finally realized I couldn't continue living this way. I didn't love my SO, and he deserved better than a lying, cheating partner. It took me months to gather the courage, but I eventually broke up with him. 2 days later, he committed suicide. I've been struggling with the guilt ever since. Jason has been my rock, and we've been together for over a year now. He's the only reason I'm still alive. Story 23. I'm about to head to a counseling appointment, so maybe this will come up, maybe it won't. I have 2 secrets. One people might guess, and another I can't tell anyone. The first is about my mom. I care for her because she has a mental disability, but on some level, I hate her. Her ex-boyfriend abused me, and she turned a blind eye. She even defended him when the school called to ask why I wasn't attending, then told me she wouldn't stick up for me again. When I was 16, he abandoned her, leaving her destitute. Her family took her in, but they also took all her money. Eventually, she came to live with me because she couldn't fend for herself. I take her places, organize her life, and care for her, but I resent her. She embarrasses me constantly, talking loudly and rudely in public and saying inappropriate things about people. Her disability isn't obvious, so to others, she just seems like an awful person. She also insults me by comparing herself to me, likely because she grew up with sisters, but it's infuriating. The worst is when she talks about her time with her ex and remembers things completely differently, sometimes even making my worst memories into funny stories. The second secret is about my husband. A few months ago, I discovered he's been using meth. For about a year, he had random panic attacks, sleepless nights, and restless behavior. I was so worried, dragging him to doctors and counselors, staying up with him and stressing myself out. Then a friend suggested it could be drugs. At first, I didn't believe it, but when I confronted him, he confessed. I was devastated. He tried rehab but stopped, saying it wouldn't help. His symptoms disappeared for a while, so I thought he was clean, but then they returned recently. He swears he didn't use again, saying he was just overtired and stressed. I'm confused. If he's lying, and I believe him, it gives him an excuse for future relapses. I can't tell anyone because of the judgment I'd face for staying with him, though I'm not sure I chose to stay. It just happened. What hurts the most isn't the drugs. It's the lies. For a year, I cried from lack of sleep and stress, organizing appointments, while he knew all along what the problem was. Story 24. How bad my relapses are, how frequently they happen, and the guilt I feel because my PTSD doesn't come from war. I wonder why I have it so bad when others have experienced worse. When I was 17, I tried synthetic weed for the first time and passed out, cracking my head open on a stone table. I felt like I was trapped in an unending nightmare for years. The pain in my head and body from vomiting and bleeding turned every vision into torture. I saw people with their skin peeled off, screaming and clawing at me. I imagined myself as part of a giant wheel made of worms, its motion making me vomit and causing unbearable pain when I hit the ground. Eventually, the vision stopped, and I felt like a disembodied consciousness trapped in a void, cycling endlessly between pain in my head and the pain of vomiting. It lasted for what felt like an eternity. I didn't know who I was or why it was happening. I begged for it to end, but it never did, until suddenly everything snapped back. I opened my eyes to see 4 police officers and 4 EMTs holding me down. They were shouting, and I was fighting them off until I regained control of my body. I relaxed, and they pinned me down. They looked into my eyes and realized I was back. As they wheeled me to the ambulance, I saw my church pastor, Tim, standing nearby. I lazily said, "Hey, Tim," before they sedated me. The doctor later told me the synthetic weed triggered an allergic reaction and put me into cardiac arrest. My heart rate spiked so high I should have died twice. He warned that if I had any genetic predisposition to heart issues, I'd likely develop them later in life. When I woke up, I drifted through conversations, fixated on one thing. What do I look like? Who am I? I recognized everyone, but couldn't imagine my own face. At home, I locked myself in the bathroom and stared at the stranger in the mirror. Now, when I relapse, I feel all of it again. The horrors, the void, the pain. People say I breathe heavily, grip my heart, and sometimes crawl on the ground, but I don't remember any of it. Story 25. My brother is now in rehab. He flunked out of college and cost my parents an obscene amount of money. They've always handed him everything, while I've earned everything I have. I like firearms, which they don't approve of, so I bought all my own cars and worked multiple jobs to afford them. Meanwhile, he's just been given another car. What irritates me even more is that they allow him to drink at their house, even though he's underage, in outpatient drug rehab, and on a cocktail of psychiatric medications following a suicide attempt. When I was his age, I wasn't allowed to drink despite having none of those issues. At his age, I had 3 jobs, my own car, and my own apartment. But they're buying alcohol for him because he asks. A month ago, he almost died from a drug overdose. I know who his dealers are, and when I get upset, I plan in detail how to torture and kill them without getting caught. Recently, one of his high school classmates ended up in a coma because the same dealers pressed their pills with fentanyl. I'm starting to think these people are a public menace the world would be better without. I know this probably sounds angsty, but damn, it feels good to get it off my chest. Story 26. I'm in my 40s, married with kids, and I was doing well in my career until things took a turn for the worse at the company I worked for back in January. I'd always wanted to start my own business, and when I was laid off, I saw it as the time to make a decision. Find another job or take a chance. My wife and I discussed it, and she supported my decision to go for it. Fast forward to July, and we hit a financial breaking point. We were 2 months behind on rent. The business was taking longer than expected to produce income. The kids needed to eat, and the car payments were late. I've never felt so helpless. I did the one thing I swore I'd never do. I asked my dad for a loan. I promised to repay him double by December. He loaned me $6,000, and I agreed to repay $12,000. The thing is, my dad did something awful a few years ago, and the family cut all ties with him. I didn't tell my wife about the loan or the agreement. I did what I had to do to keep the lights on and feed my family. Now it's October, and I'm barely making ends meet. Hurricane Harvey made things worse, and I'm worried I won't be able to repay him. My wife still doesn't know about the loan, and I don't know how to tell her. Story 27. Pretty much my entire life since I was 6 years old has been one big secret. I'm 26 now. I apologize in advance for the length of this. I was bullied heavily as a child. From the age of 5, there wasn't a single day I wasn't tormented. Teachers were so concerned they kept me inside classrooms during recess, afraid I'd get hurt. This went on until I was 12 when I started high school. For a while, things were fine, and I even got a girlfriend. But then my old bullies transferred to the same school. They ruined my relationship by scaring my girlfriend into breaking up with me, and I went back to being physically assaulted nearly every day. I was completely done. Then I had a terrible car accident on my way to school. A speeding car hit me while I was cycling, and I spent 3 weeks in the ICU. The doctors warned my parents to start looking into special needs schools because of the severity of my injuries. I don't remember anything between the day before the accident and the day I left the ICU. Looking back, I wonder if it was truly an accident or if I tried to kill myself. I've always been hyper-aware of my surroundings, especially because of the bullying, and I think I would have noticed the car if I'd cared to. Even now, I suspect it might have been a suicide attempt. After the hospital, my parents refused to enroll me in a special needs school. Instead, they pushed me to keep my brain active by solving my schoolwork, and even my sister's advanced materials. When I returned to school, I struggled despite having completed everything in the hospital. Fast forward 4 years, and I was in my second to last year of high school studying computer science. I was fed up. I had friends now and wasn't being bullied anymore, but I was failing classes because I didn't complete assignments. Teachers were baffled because I always knew the answers. This led to me repeating both my final years, which was an excruciating experience. After high school, I went to college for computer science, but quit after 4 months. I was disgusted with school and sank into a deep depression. I spent 8 months playing video games 20 hours a day and sleeping for the remaining 4. My parents, understandably fed up, pushed me to get a job. I got a labor job I hated just to make them happy. They charged me $900 a month in rent, which included back pay for the months I wasn't working. Eventually, I paid it off, but they kept demanding $900 monthly. When I refused, they took me to court and won. I was left with over $5,000 in debt and no place to live. Throughout all this, I carried the lingering thought that my accident might have been a suicide attempt. That dark place in my mind told me, it doesn't matter how bad things get. We'll just keep going. And if you're done, you're done. Eventually, I got an apartment and a therapist who suggested I take some cognitive tests. The results were shocking. I wasn't the idiot I'd been made to feel like. I was highly gifted. Regular schools hadn't challenged me, which is why I didn't study or complete assignments. This revelation changed my perspective. My therapist encouraged me to try school again, but this time to pursue something challenging. I chose the hardest possible courses in law and thrived. By studying multiple subjects simultaneously, I stayed engaged and finished a 6-year degree in just 3.5 years. Today, I'm happily employed in the legal field. Though the dark thoughts linger, they're much less present. I haven't spoken to my parents in 3 years and genuinely love life now. What's most remarkable is that no one knows this story. Not my siblings, parents, or even my best friend. They only know I finished a law degree. I've never shared my doubts about the accident either. Writing this out feels like lifting a planet off my shoulders. To anyone who reads this, thank you. You have no idea how much it means. Story 28. I used to work as a rape crisis counselor. People often think rapists are strangers, but most of the women I counseled were abused by friends or boyfriends. One woman in particular came to our crisis center 7 or 8 times after her boyfriend brutally raped her. Every time she'd press charges, but then drop them the next day after he apologized and take him back. I grew to hate that man. Months later, I ran into him in a bathroom on campus. I didn't think clearly. I was angry. And before I realized what I was doing, I slammed his head into the hand dryer. He collapsed instantly. Panicking, I dragged him into a stall, took his iPod, and threw it away in another building. Then I went back to my dorm and staged a scene to make it look like I'd been drinking all morning and hadn't left my room. No one ever questioned me, and I've never told anyone, not even my wife. The guilt lingers, not for hitting him, but for the risk I took. If anyone knew, it could ruin my career and life. Story 29. I was almost a school shooter. In 1996, when I was a junior in high school, I was bullied relentlessly. My dad had died the year before. My mom was absent, and my sister had married someone close to my age who acted like he was in charge of me. On my school bus, a girl once sat behind me and slapped me repeatedly, following me when I changed seats. The driver did nothing. On another bus to my sister's, a guy who bullied me every day passed the torch to his little brother when he dropped out, and the harassment continued. One day after the slapping incident, I decided I'd had enough. I packed my dad's .38 pistol and a box of ammo in my bag. I planned to kill every bully on both buses. The morning I brought the gun to school, I froze. I kept my hand on it in my bag but couldn't act. I went through the entire school day carrying a loaded weapon and then rode the bus to my sister's in the evening. Miraculously, the bullies left me alone that day. The next year, I transferred schools and got a fresh start. No one bullied me at my new school, and I had a good senior year. My mom pawned the gun a few months later. Years after high school, I ran into one of my bullies at a party. He said hello and made small talk, but all I could think was how close he'd come to dying. I'm so glad I froze that day. It's something I still think about, and I'm grateful I didn't go through with it. Story 30. I got married at the end of July. The night was a whirlwind of dancing, hugs, and conversations with everything blurring together. At one point, I stepped outside to use the restroom, and on my way back in, I saw a group of buddies catching up. One of my friends, a firefighter, was telling one of his outrageous stories. He had always been the life of the party with his wild tales. After his story ended, the group broke into smaller conversations. When I hugged him, he told me, "I'm so proud of you, man, really proud of you." We caught up briefly, but he seemed off. He mentioned he wanted to quit firefighting. Then almost casually, he said, "I'm going to kill myself, dog, just shoot myself in the head." I laughed it off, thinking it was just another one of his shocking jokes, and told him to call me first and come visit California. A month later, his sister called to tell me he had shot himself in the head. The guilt consumes me. He tried to tell me he was struggling, and I brushed it off. I wasn't paying attention. I failed him. I also remember during the wedding when the photographer took my wife and me out for sunset photos. He was standing alone in the field, staring at the horizon, smoking a cigarette in silence. That image haunts me. He already knew what he was going to do. Story 31. My life has been shaped by abuse and betrayal. My older brother has physically and emotionally abused me for as long as I can remember. He likely has Asperger's, and while I've tried to empathize, the abuse has left deep scars. He puts me down, attacks me, and orders me around, and my parents have never intervened. They excuse his behavior because of his condition, but it doesn't heal the damage he's caused. Several months ago, I came out as bi to a few friends. One of them betrayed me, cutting ties, outing me to others, and spreading cruel lies that damaged my reputation. No one stood up for me or listened to my side. Even the school administration ignored the evidence I provided. My counselor told me to focus on what I can change, but it feels impossible to change myself when no one is holding him accountable. The betrayal hurts, but what's worse is the silence from everyone else. My parents refuse to talk about it, and my friends continue to support the person who hurt me. Every day I feel more isolated, my mental health deteriorating. I've tried to stay strong, to remain positive and supportive of others, even when I'm falling apart inside. But it's exhausting. Writing this down is one of the few ways I can release the pain. Story 32. I killed my grandmother, not out of spite, but as an act of euthanasia. I loved her when she was well. It's something no one would ever believe because the weapon was just words. My grandmother had suffered several strokes, and after a rapid series, her mind was almost entirely gone. She didn't recognize her husband or children and had the mental capacity of a 5-year-old. A stranger held power of attorney over her due to a chain of signatures within the family. This person refused to sign a DNR because of their religious beliefs, forcing her to remain alive in a near-vegetative state at an exorbitant cost. When I visited her, she appeared unresponsive, unable to focus or understand anything. But I remembered something. As a child, she didn't speak English. In her native language, I softly spoke to her. To my shock, she responded. While her comprehension was minimal, she understood basic words. I called the nursing home days later, insisting on speaking to her. They said she couldn't talk, but I explained she understood me. Once on the phone, I spoke in her native language and told her to stop eating because the food was bad. She resisted, but eventually agreed after I spoke sternly. A month later, she passed away, unable to eat due to unexplained illness. Her passing gave her peace, and though I ended her life, I believe I did what was right. Story 33. I used to abuse my younger siblings, my sister, 6 years younger, and my brother, 3 years younger, and severely autistic. From ages 9 to 14, I was cruel beyond reason. I physically hurt them, pulled cruel pranks like peeing in their drinks, and said the most hurtful things imaginable. Once, I was so mad at my sister that I called her to the living room and demanded she lie down so I could stomp on her chest. My family never saw these incidents. My parents worked all day, and my grandmother, who watched us, didn't intervene. I had severe anger issues, and my siblings became my outlet. By 15 or 16, I stopped being physically abusive, but still bullied them. Now, at 21, I deeply regret what I did. My anger issues are under control, and I treat them with respect. My autistic brother can't understand an apology, so I just hope he knows I love him. My sister and I are close, but I know it's not the relationship we should have. When we fight, her reactions are intense, and I feel it stems from our past. I constantly wonder how I can make it up to them or give them those years back. I was a terrible brother, and the guilt eats away at me. I've changed, but I'll never forgive myself for what I did to them. Story 34. I moved back near my family after being away for 20 years. My brother was going through a divorce. His ex-wife emotionally abused him and cheated on him for years, and he was a wreck. He started dating an amazing woman who was good for him, and they got married after his divorce. He's doing a lot better now, which is great because I love my brother. But being around him is difficult for me. He's had a dark presence around him since we were kids. We used to share a room, and I was attacked by this presence a few times, though it only happened when I was near him, never when I was alone. Now, as an adult, I can feel it draw near whenever I'm around him, and it terrifies me. My brother is a good person, and I have no idea why this thing has been attached to him for so long, or how he deals with it. Seeing ghosts and feeling spirits runs in our family to some extent. We're normal people and rarely talk about it because it's not a fun subject. I only recently learned that some of my nieces and nephews can actually see ghosts, just like a few of my cousins could. Since moving back home, I've become more sensitive to what's around me, though I've learned how to shut it out if I try hard enough. A family member once told me I was sensitive to these things, but too scared to embrace it and learn more. They were right. I am scared, and I'm not sure I see any benefit in exploring it further. This is just one strange aspect of my life that I've been trying to figure out. It's not something I'd ever share with people I know. Story 35. My parents divorced when I was 5. I thought my mom was the coolest because she let me do whatever I wanted and watch anything during her visitation. She never kept her promises, but she was funny and acted like my best friend. On the other hand, my dad remarried, and I thought my stepmom was the worst. She had rules, set limits, and wouldn't let me run the house. Fast forward 25 years, and now I have kids of my own. I finally understand and haven't spoken to my biological mom in 4 years. She's never met my kids and never will unless she gets clean. She's an addict in denial and doesn't want help. Looking back, I feel like I wasted so much time admiring the wrong woman. My stepmom, who I now call Mom, is the mama my kids know and love. I'm embarrassed about my past relationship with my biological mom and feel at a loss for how to apologize or make it up to my stepmom. Every Mother's Day, I try to write her a card expressing how I feel, but I can never find the words to say it out loud. I call her mom and treat her the way I should have all those years, but I've never been able to fully articulate the apology I feel she deserves. Story 36. When I was 13, my dad took us to San Francisco. On the first day, we crossed the Golden Gate Bridge, and everything was fine. I'd never heard of or imagined that people jumped from there to their deaths. It made me feel sick just seeing people lean too far over. On the second day, while crossing the bridge again to go somewhere, I think to see the redwoods. It was foggy and cold, so there weren't as many tourists. As we walked, I saw someone on the other side of the railing, just the back of their head in a hoodie. Before I could fully register what I was seeing, they jumped. It happened so fast. For a moment, it didn't seem real. Then the horrifying realization hit me. There's nothing there to catch someone. They were gone. I spent the rest of the day convincing myself it hadn't happened. I even managed to believe it for a while because no one else seemed to notice. My dad's girlfriend's daughter, Courtney, was super religious, and I thought she would have said something if she'd seen it. There were no cops, no commotion, nothing. For years, I believed I made it up in my head. Then in 2006, I saw the bridge, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Not only do people jump from the Golden Gate Bridge, but it happens frequently, and many jumps go unnoticed. I'm likely the last person to see that individual alive, and I said nothing. Somewhere, a family is in limbo, wondering what happened to their loved one. To that family, I'm in limbo too. Story 37. Throwaway for obvious reasons. My life is kind of in a bad place right now. For some background, I was a weird kid. I'm not much better now, but at least it's an improvement. Once, I started crying during class because I thought the hairs growing on my arm were parasites burrowing into my skin. Thanks to watching Monsters Inside Me. Not the best show for a 10-year-old. Stuff like that happened a lot. I had greasy hair and a ton of dandruff because I hated showering. My clothes never matched and were usually short shorts, which I got laughed at for wearing, but was too clueless to connect the dots. I always smelled bad because I never wiped properly and avoided using the restroom at school due to bullying. I was socially clueless, constantly spurging out and making myself look stupid. I didn't pay attention in class and usually cheated on tests because I was terrified of failing. I didn't even have the gross but super smart thing going for me. My sister was my only friend, and she was infinitely better than me in every way. I used to pray, sometimes literally, that if someone in the family were to die, it wouldn't be her, but me. By 5th or 6th grade, I already had suicidal thoughts. Fast forward a few years. We were moving to a new house when we found out Dad had been cheating on Mom, again. It wasn't his first time, but it still shocked everyone. My sister took it the hardest. She became suicidal, and eventually she took her own life in her closet. She had been self-harming with razors before, but her death hit the family like a truck. I saw my dad cry for the first time in my life. He sat against the wall in my sister's room, surrounded by her drawings, many of which had been requests from people all over the world. And what did I do? I wrote about it. I sat down and wrote a fictional story about someone losing their best friend to sewage. I feel disgusted just typing that. It only hit me recently how selfish, clueless, and horrible I was as a kid. I was so detached from other people's emotions. I even kept making sewage jokes weeks after my sister's death. Worse still, I took out my anger on my mentally handicapped brother, I would scream at him to leave me alone in the room we shared. I had no care for anyone but myself. I didn't even take death seriously. Now I have no one to vent to except my family, and I can't burden them. If my mom knew I was suicidal, she might end her own life. She's a nurse, and I know she has access to things that could make that happen. My dad is already off his antidepressants because of the other meds he has to take for diabetes. If he found out, he could ask for the antidepressants back and overdose. He probably sees me as a disappointment anyway after I yelled that I wouldn't go to college during an argument. My dad used to see me as his go-to after my sister's death because I had talent in writing and music. But now, all his focus is on my baby sister. She's the only reason he's still with Mom and the only thing keeping him alive. As for me, it's not hard to see how close I am to ending things. I have no friends. I alienated everyone back when I was that weird kid in elementary school. The idea of getting married or even finding someone who might be attracted to me feels laughable. Every time a girl passed me a note or asked me out, it turned out to be a prank or a dare. The thought of someone genuinely liking me is impossible to believe. Story 38. I am in a new relationship, just 4 months old, with a man I'm pretty sure is the love of my life. I have a content life with 2 amazing children. But last month, I started a new birth control that messed with my cycle. I got pregnant, I terminated the pregnancy. I was almost 6 weeks when I took the misoprostol. I didn't want to terminate, but I knew continuing the pregnancy would have made life harder for everyone I care about, including myself. I don't regret my decision, but I can't stop feeling this heavy pit of sadness in my chest. It's not there every moment, but it's there a lot of the time. I can't tell anyone. Only my boyfriend knows. Going to work has been so hard. I work with infants and toddlers, and my coworker in the classroom is 7 months pregnant. I feel like I'm starting to unravel. I've begun feeling like everyone would be better off without me. I'm starting to feel like a bad person. I hate having this sadness lingering in the back of my head all the time. I'm afraid it will affect my relationship with my boyfriend, even though he has been the most amazing and supportive person through all of this. He doesn't deserve to deal with my sadness. He deserves better. Sometimes I even feel like I can't look at my kids. I know eventually it will get better. But right now, I am not okay. Story 39. I damn near hung myself a little over a month ago. I've struggled with suicidal tendencies or fantasies or whatever you want to call them for as long as I can remember. One other person knows this, and only because I was told that I need to talk about these things instead of hiding them. I was told this the first time I went to a psych ward, but the truth is, I don't know how to talk to anyone about it, and in all honesty, I don't really want to. I wish I had never brought it up to my friend. It's not fair to dump your problems onto someone else. This is the side of me people really don't need to know about. I'm not mad at anyone. I just hate seeing that expression on their face when they care, but don't know how to help. Or the fact that I know people care and that I'm not a bad person, but I still can't feel okay. There's always something wrong, even if nothing is wrong. Just this odd base level of pain and depression. I can't feel okay, or that life is good, or even worth it. I'm just incredibly unhappy. I don't enjoy being alive, to be honest. More often than not, I wish I could just accidentally die. Just a regular death. No hints of suic or anything. No one would have to know or try to figure out what was going through my head. As I get older, I honestly don't know what I enjoy, what makes me happy, or what even matters. In the end, I guess nothing does.